Hi everybody, we're going to be doing some looking at speech in grammar today, and we're going to be identifying how to correctly use speech marks. Now we're going to be doing a lot on speech because it can get quite tricky. There are lots of unusual rules that are unique to speech, and we're going to be doing it a lot next week. So we're going to get a basic overview today, and then next week we'll look at the more the really small rules in more detail. So we have two types of speech. We have direct speech and indirect speech. Now, indirect speech tells the idea of what someone has said. It's a little bit like you telling somebody else what a different person has said. So the exact words are not given. The girl said she was tired. It's a bit like you coming up to me and saying somebody has just said something not very nice to me or something along those lines. You're not using the exact words. The girl said she is tired. The boy said he saw so-and-so do so-and-so. Yeah? Direct speech, we are using the exact words that somebody has said. I am tired, said the girl. Can you see how there's a difference? They both mean the same thing. One is the actual words of somebody. The other is somebody telling somebody about what they have said. I hope that's not confusing. Yeah? So you might say to somebody, I spoke to so-and-so and they said I needed to sit back down. Whereas it might be that person said, go and sit back down. So what is the purpose of speech marks? Speech marks are used to show exactly what is said within a sentence. So we need to know exactly what is being spoken by something. The text included within the speech marks is directed speech. So anything that is within the speech marks is being spoken by the character. If it's not being said by the character, do not put it in the speech marks. Speech marks are forms of punctuation marks, and a comma is used to separate direct speech. That's something we'll cover a lot more next week. That can get pretty tricky. So what I want you to do is just on this, where do you think the speech marks will go? Let's have a think. Which bit is actually being said? Do you go... So I don't walk around and say, go into a shop and say, okay, I'd like to buy this milk, please, said Mr. Phillips. I don't say that all of the time. But when we're writing it, that bit's not being said, said Mr. Phillips. But the open your books is. That's what they said, said the teacher. I don't know where to go, said Sam. If you don't know where to go, would you go and ask for a map? Say, I don't know where to go, said Mr. Phillips. I don't walk around saying that. So it's actually just that I don't know where to go. Let's double check that. There we go. Hopefully that is clear. So we can place directed speech at the beginning of a sentence. For example, let's go to the beach, said Sam. Or at the end of the sentence, Sam said, let's go to the beach. You can see slight changes in punctuation there. So at the end of our speech, we've actually got a comma up here. And here we've got a full stop. And actually our comma has come here just before that, but there's no capital letter. But there is a capital letter here. So depending on where it is, depends on where our punctuation marks go. As I say, we'll cover this in a lot more detail next week. So commas. If a directed speech is at the beginning of a sentence, then the comma is placed inside the speech marks. You can see that here. When directed speech is at the end of a sentence, the comma is outside the speech marks. You can see it here. It's at the beginning. But our full stop is also inside the speech marks. Capital letters. Directed speech always starts with a capital letter. even if it's not placed at the beginning of a sentence. Now I've just noticed, oh no, it is there. I thought that wasn't. So yeah, Mr. Willis said the shops are closed. So even though we've got a comma here, this is the beginning of our speech. So it has a capital letter. Full stops. When directed speech ends a sentence, the full stop is placed inside the speech marks. This also applies to question marks and exclamation marks. If directed speech begins the sentence, then the punctuation marks still go inside the speech marks. So because that question mark is related, you can't see. So because this question mark is related to this speech, which is inside the speech marks, then so our punctuation mark goes inside the speech marks. But you'll notice, even though I've used a question mark, I haven't started with capital letter. As I say, it can be quite complicated, but we will learn it together. So your task today, what I want you to do is just to identify the sentences which need to include speech marks and place them in there. So some of these might need speech marks. If they do, put the speech marks in. If you need to go back over the rules, please do. Number 2, include correct punctuation within the paragraph. So here's a paragraph, punctuate it for me. It might be speech marks. It might be commas. Have a think about it. Read the scenarios below. So we've got some scenarios below here. Write responses for each character using the speech. So there's 2 people playing in the park. Please don't write loads. Just write one for each character. One sentence that they might say. So Kit and Josh are playing in the park. So Kit might say, let's go and climb this tree. And Josh might say, we need to be careful that we don't fall out. Yeah? But remember, try to put the reported, I think it's called reported clause, where we say said. Yeah, said Kit, said Josh. Here's the answers to question 1. So we have our comma outside, and our capital letter, and our speech marks. We have our full stop inside, speech marks on the outside. Again, speech marks here. We have our comma, our question mark inside, and our speech marks. This is indirect speech, so we don't need it. And you may come in, Grace said to Paul. Now, you may be asking why these have got capital letters, and we didn't have that before when we said asked. That's because they're proper nouns. Here we go. Oh no, mission control came over the radio. Watch out for the space junk vector. Vicky just jumped out. I'm going to pause this. I'm not going to go through all of it. Pause it. Have you got it correctly? If not, correct it yourself. So I look forward to seeing this. It's a very complicated skill. So as I say, please don't panic. We will be covering this next week as well, because we know